Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. I'm Aaron Veloce, and I just finished building a all-new PC with the AMD 7950X and a Asus TUF 4090. And I filmed a ton of content, just a lot of projects that I wanted to do with this new PC and how it relates to sim racing and the kind of benefits of that. But I figured I'd kind of do more like quick and dirty video of just my first impressions of some of its improvements in performance in some of like my main racing titles and just some other very heavy performance related titles as well, with like ray tracing and DLSS. So this is just going to be kind of, just going over some of that. And then I'll have some future videos just showcasing more in-depth benchmarking, comparing a lot more titles and a lot more situations like VR, triple screens and multiple resolutions, and try to cover all sim racing possible setups with multiple GPUs that I have, like the 2080 Ti. I have a 3090 and then now the 4090, and then I have a couple different CPUs that I wanted to test as well. All right, this guy was making some noise, so I'm gonna keep him with me for a little bit. But I have a couple different CPUs as well. The 3800X, which is a couple years old now, 5950X, a brand new 5800X 3D, which I think is a great option to upgrade if you already have an AM4 motherboard, and then the 7950X. So I want to kind of test all these in GPU bound situations and then CPU bound situations, and kind of see where it needs what kind of performance you might need for single screens or VR or triples at 1080p, 1440p, things like that. So kind of covering all the bases as much as I possibly can with what I have. But I also have some other videos planned showcasing this build and going through the process of how I fit so much into a tiny mini case, which I think that was pretty fun. But I don't want to ramble too long. I'll just get on with the video and see just how strong this thing is. All right, so it's the next day. I was up till like 6 a.m. working on the video and working on all this last night. But I'm gonna hop into a couple different racing games and kind of anecdotally just look at the performance improvements, and I might put up a couple of different graphs comparing to my old PC. But for now, let's just do a little bit of driving and just see how much of an improvement this was to my last PC. All right, so this is the original Assetto Corsa, and I have everything maxed out. I am using Content Manager, so I think there's there's some extra graphic settings in there. And I believe I'm just running like what the default Content Manager. I haven't really fine-tuned the Content Manager graphic settings, but otherwise everything in game is maxed out in the default settings. Post-processing is maxed out. Before, on my old setup, I was getting about 120 frames, but that's because I had deactivated post-processing, and I don't recommend that because I was wondering why I couldn't see other people's brake lights. They were super dim when they're braking. I was like, oh, this is dangerous. And it's because of the post-processing effects. So compared to my old PC, I was getting about 80 frames in this same maxed out scenario. And with all AI cars in the field. So we'll see. Our goal is basically to beat 80 FPS at triple 4K screens on Assetto Corsa. So I know everything looks a little janky right now. I'm in the process of moving my whole studio setup to a different room. And so I've been redoing everything and just been extremely busy with all this stuff lately. So that's why it doesn't look like it used to. I just figured it'd be easier to just run the benchmark, so we'll just do that instead. All right, here we go. We're running the benchmark, and like I said, the goal to beat was about average of 80 FPS, and right now it looks like we're averaging about 120 FPS. So if that trend continues, a 40 FPS gain at triple 4K max graphics, I mean, that is huge. 124 right now, 120. It is dipping into like the mid, like 115 area. And these are 4K 120 hertz screens, so my goal is basically only just to hit 120 hertz. All right, so the results are in, and it's looking like average FPS was 119, which is perfect. It's exactly what I was looking for. That is awesome performance for Assetto Corsa, and like I said, fully maxed out as well. I did another benchmark, and I did get a little bit higher of a score. And I'm thinking maybe my settings weren't exactly the same for Assetto Corsa because of Content Manager. I actually think I had a little bit more aggressive settings on the new PC. So once I do the really dialed in benchmarks, comparing all the different components, I'll make sure to dial this in perfectly. I even have one of my first benchmarks of Assetto Corsa where I hit 138 average FPS. So I would take this one for now with a little bit more grain of salt, but clearly the 4090 is just a powerhouse. All right, so the next game I want to try is F1 2022. It has a built-in benchmark as well, and with ray tracing, DLSS, it'll be a good showcase of performance. In this one, I'm just going to run native 4K because it doesn't technically have triple screen support. You can make it run in triple screens with like Nvidia Surround, but I want to run it in its native performance. And we're going to run max graphics with DLSS set to quality and ray tracing. All right, so the performance target to beat from the old PC is about an average of 66 frames per second at 4K. So we'll see what this one can do. And so it looks like we're getting just about over 100 FPS. So that's another 40 FPS boost. We're getting about 106, 108, now 120. Ooh, okay. That is seriously powerful. Holy smokes. We're almost just about doubling our FPS here. And I don't think DLSS 3.0 is not out yet for this game, or I'm not sure if it is for any game yet. We just hit 130 there. So potentially with DLSS, we can get even better performance. But yeah, maxed graphics, everything set as high as it can go with ray tracing and DLSS set to quality. We're getting above 120. Just hit 130 again there. So probably averaging about 120 maybe overall, and coming from an average of 66 FPS, that is just incredible. All right, so our total average FPS is 117, so quite the big improvement, about 50 FPS average over the 3090 and 5950X. So that is huge. I know it's not a racing sim, but we're going to do Forza Horizon 5 as well because it's another extremely demanding game. It doesn't have DLSS. It does have a built-in benchmark, but graphically I think it's one of the best looking racing games. So interested to see what the performance difference is on this one. Our target to beat over the old PC is an average of 71 frames per second. Oh, 160 FPS right now. It's not going to stay like that. There's no way. Okay, we're about 135 averaging right now. It is okay. We're dropping in about 120, back in the 130s. Wow. Like I said, the target to beat was 71 average frames per second. And we're getting like average mid 130s, hit 140 there. A little bit of dips in the 120s. That is incredible. And obviously the benchmark just started, but the fact that this is a small form factor case with all full-size components, full ATX power supply, full-size motherboard. It still can fit a lot of fans, but that graphics card is huge in there. And the GPU temps is 58C right now. I don't think my water-cooled 3090 ever ran in the 50s, even with max fan speed. 7 FPS average. That is nuts. Once again, almost doubling the performance at 4K max graphics. No DLSS on this one, and that is awesome. Crazy performance increase. This is another title actually got a better performance benchmark than what I was doing in the video. It was most likely due to just having less 4K screens plugged in, less applications running. So even then, still a little bit more performance on top. All right, so this one is gonna be the real test to see just how strong this PC is, because Assetto Corsa Competizione, this is my main racing sim. It's one of the most demanding racing sims. So this is what I was really looking forward to increasing my performance in. So once again, I have everything set as high as it'll go. Anything I go to Epic is Epic. I'm running DLSS quality. The performance goal to beat in this scenario is 55 FPS over the old PC. So this is Laguna Seca in a clear day environment with 29 AI cars on track. And yeah, I only got about 55 average FPS in this scenario. So we'll see how much better it is in this case. And right now I am getting 90 FPS. Wow. And this just looks so much better too. I didn't run these settings on my old setup. I ran about 80 FPS average with much lower settings and DLSS performance over quality. And I'm pretty much getting that performance with way higher fidelity. Everything looks much, much nicer. Getting anywhere in the 80s to peaks of like 90 FPS. So if I was to run those optimized settings, I'd probably be getting well over 100 FPS in this scenario. So I'm gonna just let these cars pass me to just get, you know, as many AI cars on screen. And it looks like we're getting about averaging 80 FPS now. And we'll just do a quick full lap in and compare that performance to the old PC. Back in the 90s again. This part of the track, it kind of clears up a little bit. You get a little bit higher frames, hit 97 for a second there. And of course, this is, you know, AI. I don't really race with AI, so this is kind of like a worst case scenario. So if you're on multiplayer or hot lapping, you'd probably get a decent amount of more performance as well. Being able to go from those lower optimized settings to completely maxed out settings while still keeping the same, if not better, performance is really awesome to see. I kind of want to do another test run with maybe a little bit slightly more optimized settings. So let's go to options, video. Let's just set this to, we'll set it to high, and then I'll put DLSS performance on. And we'll just see what kind of frames we get in that scenario. So let's just restart. My safety rating has, I should have turned off the safety rating with AI because it's been getting brutalized on these tests. All right, here we go. Now we're getting 118 FPS, 115, 14. So just by dropping the settings to just the preset high and with DLSS performance, already getting a huge uplift. 105 FPS. And I mean, shooting for a goal of 100 FPS at triple 4K, I think is, that's perfect. Wow, yeah, I'm super happy with the performance so far, and I'm sure with a little bit more fine tuning, it can be even better. But even max graphics, like I said, that's totally playable at average of 80 to 90 FPS. That's perfect too. So we just hit a CPU limit there because my GPU utilization was like 80%, and we dropped to like 80 frames. So even then, when you're running triple 4K and with all AI cards, there are still some times where you'll get into CPU limited scenarios depending on your graphics settings. And it looks like I'm actually hitting some here because the GPU has a little bit more room to work with. They're waiting for me to start. So let's let them fly through again and see, getting high 90s, drop to 88 again there, and my GPU utilization is shooting down 79%. So it looks like the CPU is still actually a big limiting factor, even at this crazy resolution. Yeah, I'm fully CPU bottlenecked right now. So it even looks like maybe the 7000 series 3D chips, when they come out, maybe there'll still be a performance there as well. So I think that'll conclude the test for now. There's still plenty of stuff I do want to test that will be in the future videos, like iRacing, R Factor, Automobilista, and of course VR and all the other screen resolutions and stuff like that. But what do you guys think of the performance so far? I think it's freaking awesome. Couldn't be happier with how this PC is working out. And just, all this power packed in something so small is really awesome. And temperatures have been okay. 64C, I think, was the max. It's running at 61, 62C right now on triple 4K screens. Looking at the CPU temperature right now, I mean, the game is paused, but it's still rendering at 121 FPS right now. CPU temperature is at 66 degrees Celsius. That's kind of nuts. The hottest I've seen the CPU so far was 80 degrees, and I forgot which game that was. And this CPU is meant to go all the way to 95. It'll purposely run at 95C and try to hit, that's its goal. It's not the same as before with the old chips. If it has headroom, it will use as much headroom as possible in terms of cooling and temperature. Cyberpunk at max graphics was, once again, 64C on the GPU and only 75, 76C on the CPU. So I'm not too worried about the temperatures so far. I posted the PC on Reddit, and a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, that thing's gonna melt. But even with that massive GPU in there, which looks like it's totally blocking all the airflow, is working out great. And I'm still thinking about maybe swapping the top, bottom, and front fans all with 140mm Noctua fans to get a little bit more airflow in there and also keep it quieter as well. So one thing I mentioned earlier was that I wasn't planning on getting the TUF card. I wanted the Founders or the MSI, but I was happy I got the TUF because it coincidentally worked out perfect for me. And why did that work out perfectly? Well, the TUF card has an extra HDMI port, an HDMI 2.1 to be exact. Now you can still only run 4 ports at once, so you can't have 5 displays running at the same time, but in Windows, you can swap which screens are being used without having to unplug and replug them back in. So that means I can have all 3 of these triple screens plugged in, a 4th monitor on top. It looks like it just went in sleep mode. A desk monitor and VR all plugged in at the same time without using, if you've seen one of my older videos, DisplayPort switch. So everything can be plugged into the PC, and through software, I can just switch things around and not have to have any physical switches, which can sometimes cause issues with high refresh rates and G-Sync. Although this, I got everything working perfectly. just taking one link out of the chain, I think was a cool benefit. So I'm super stoked about that. I kind of just waltzed into that perfect scenario, and I'll go over that more in another video as well, because that kind of deserves its own video too. Because also the CPU and motherboard play a factor in that as well to make that possible. So whole nother thing, excited to talk about that in the future too. So once again, let me know what you guys think. Subscribe if you want to see more content surrounding this PC in the future, those future benchmarks, and just sim racing content and tech content in general. And if you did enjoy this video, I'd greatly appreciate a thumbs up, and that really helps the channel. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.